Yesterday we started with TestNG tutorials, and the topics which we have covered so far is, first we started with what is TestNG. TestNG is a testing framework which is used by developers for their unit testing, and we as an automation tester use it for writing the functional tests. Okay, now there are a couple of frameworks available in market for testing, like unit tests are JUnit is there, TestNG is there. So these two are most famous one. Then we discussed that what is the comparison. We did a thorough comparison between TestNG and JUnit, and there are many features which uh, for functional testing we need. So they are available in TestNG but are not available in JUnit. Then we started with installing TestNG in Eclipse, and then annotations. Started with annotations. So what is an annotation? Annotation is a a word used with an @ symbol, and the method written just after it is considered as a special method. Like if I'm putting @test, then the method written just after is considered as a test case. Similarly, we discussed about other annotations, like we have different @before and @after annotations, which helps us in executing certain methods at specific points. Like if I want to execute something before a method and after a method, then I have @before method, @after method. Similarly, if I want to execute something in the start of as soon as the class loads, for that we have before class and after class, and so on. Then we discuss about certain attributes, starting with first attribute which we discussed was the priority. Priority is when by default all the test cases run in a random order, and that not actually random order, uh, but uh, in alphabetic order. Okay, so if you don't want alphabetic order, then you can assign priority to each test case. The lower is the number, higher is the priority. That's how priority works. Then we discuss about one more attribute, that was enabled. Enabled is a boolean attribute. If its value is true, that means that method is enabled and will execute. If the value of enabled is equals to false, then that method is disabled and will not execute. Okay, then other attributes we discussed was, one was timeout. In case of timeout, whatever value you'll give to the timeout, within that time, if your test case is executing, then your test case is pass. If your test case takes more than that time to execute, then your test case will fail. Then comes the next attribute, and that was exception, expected exception. Sometimes what happens is you're testing a negative scenario and you want that when we are executing this scenario, an exception should occur. If that's the case, then you can expect that exception. If that exception will occur, then your test case will pass, otherwise it will fail. There are few more attributes available which we will study today. Okay, so yeah, these were the topics which we covered, and there was one more topic which we covered, that was we started with assertions in a TestNG, and today we'll continue with it also, and then we'll also discuss about testng.xml file. Now, executing code directly through class files uh, will be a troublesome work. Like let's say you have some 200 test cases and written in 10 different classes, then executing 10 different classes, like going to first class, execute it, going to second class and then execute, going to third class and execute, and so on. Okay, so it's like a very difficult, or you can say time consuming thing. A better way is we can uh, control the execution of cases rather than executing through test classes. We will create something known as testng.xml file and will control from there. Okay, so I also showed you that how you can create an XML file. Okay, so Yeah, here is the XML files which we created. So we created, first was class execution, then we saw package execution, then we saw sanity execution. So first one, which was the class execution, in this you can see in each XML file there will be a test suite. There can be only one test suite. In test suite there can be multiple tests. Like this section can be repeated again. Then in test you can have classes, you can have packages, and in classes you can have as many classes as you want. So as I was saying that, let's say if you have 200 test cases and they are divided in 10 different class, then you just have to mention those 10 classes here one by one, and then just execute this XML file, and all those classes in sequential order will execute. So this is class execution, and this is the introduction to XML file. Similarly, if you want to execute all the methods of a package, let's say if a package had 20 classes, then mentioning the name of those 20 classes also time consuming. And so what we'll do, instead of mentioning those classes, you can simply mention the package. Okay, whatever is there in day15.testng, execute all of them. So this test day15.testng has some three classes, so it will go and execute all these three classes. So this is package execution. Then we have sanity execution. Sanity execution is, let's say you want to execute all the sanity test cases of a package. So day15.testng, in this I created these two classes. In these two classes, uh, wherever it will see, like if you put this as include, then it will include it. If you put it exclude, that means it will exclude sanity, run others. Okay, so if you just change it to include, so whichever test case will have this group name as sanity, it will execute only those test cases. So this was sanity execution. And so it's very important to understand this testng.xml, because most of the scenarios now will be executing through here only. Okay, then the last topic which we covered in yesterday's class was integrating uh, Selenium with TestNG. So here what we did was, I started writing uh, a scenario of Selenium using these annotations. So first method which we created is in work browser, and the annotation we put before it is before class. So this will be the first method which will be executed whenever this class will load. Okay, then what it will do, it will just invoke the browser and it will navigate you to guru99.com. Then we wrote one more method, that was to close browser, and before that we have put an annotation as at after class. This will be the last method which will execute. Then we started writing test cases. So the first test case we wrote was verify title of the home page, and the priority we have assigned to it as priority 0. Priority 0 means this will have the highest priority. Okay, then we wrote one more method, that was login to Guru99. Login to Guru99 has priority as 100. So as you know, the least is the number, higher is the priority. So this will execute first, then this will execute, because there is no other method in between 0 and 100. And why I put 100? Let's say some other test case comes in and it has it has a priority in between these two methods, then it will be very easy to assign the priority. Just give any value between 0 and 100 and that will work. So one more thing we discussed here, that whenever you are writing any method using @test symbol, always put an assert statement. If a method does not have an assert statement, that means your test case is not a complete test case, because that test case will never fail, no matter what happens. No matter whether you will be able to log in or not, the test case will not be a failure. So good assertions makes test cases good. So it's very important to put as many assertions as possible, which ensures that your test case is correct. Okay, so next topic which I'll take is assertions and tests ng. Okay, So assertions are used to compare actual results with expected results. We can use this feature to give a verdict whether a test case is pass or fail. Say for example, after successful loading of a page, we want to compare the title of the page with the expected one. That's what we did also. Okay. So if I list down all the assertions, so these are the assertions available. First of all, we have assert equals, where we are comparing two values. This method is available as an overloaded method. Overloaded methods means same method name with multiple inputs. So there are many methods which are available, like comparing to strings, comparing to booleans, comparing to integers, and so on. Whatever data type you can think of, you can compare those two values. If they are equal, that means they have exactly same value, then uh, it will return true. That means it will pass your test case, else it will fail your test case. Okay, so this is as simple as that. Next one is when you're doing a negative testing, then this one is used. That is assert not equals. What does it take? Whatever two arguments you're passing in it, if they are equal, then your test case will fail. If they are not equal, then the test case will pass. So assert not equals means you're comparing two values. If they are equal, then test case will fail. Otherwise, test case will pass. So that's the way to remember also these assert statement. Whatever it is saying, if you're getting that value, then it is pass. Otherwise, it's fail. Like the first one is saying assert equals. That means it expects these two values to be equal. Similarly, we have assert not equals. So what does this expects? It expects that these two values, whatever values you're passing, if they are not equal, then your test case will pass. Similarly, we have assert true. What does this expects? Whatever condition you're passing, whatever boolean condition you're passing, if that returns a true, then your test case will pass. Okay. Similarly, this one, if the boolean condition returns false, then your test case will pass. Otherwise, it will be a failure. Okay. So that's how it works. Then similarly, you can see below there is assert dot not null. So assert not null is when the object you're passing does not have a null value, then your test case will pass. Similarly, we have assert null. If if the method returns a null, then your test case will pass. Next we have is assert same and assert not same. Assert same is whatever value you are passing, they are equal. Assert not same is whatever values you're passing, they are not equal. Okay, so when the two values are equal, then test case will pass. When both of them are not equal, then test case will pass. uh, Sorry, my bad. Assert same and assert not same is whatever values you're passing, if they are of same data type, no matter their value is same or not, their value is equal or not, but if they are of same data type, that means they are instance of same class, they are objects of same class, then your test case will pass. If they are, and in the other one, if they are objects of different, then test case will pass. Okay, so these are the different assertions available. Now you can use them wherever you want. So any questions here? Okay, now comes
So
a
can you
question.
give us the example where
Yeah,
to use assert same and assert not same?
actually, technically, I mean, if I say in case of Selenium, so I rarely use this. In fact, I've never used it. Is these are generally used by developers. Okay, but if you want to uh, get an example, then it can be like you're comparing two variables and you want to see whether both of them are drop downs or not. Let's say you want to check uh, whether let's say you want to check whether two drop downs has exactly same values or not. So before checking the values, you want to know whether they are both of them are drop downs or not. So you can just get those values, and uh, you can just go get those values and compare. If they are of same type, uh, that means it will be a pass. But generally speaking, Selenium won't use. For Selenium, with Selenium, we'll be using assert equals a lot and assert true and false a lot. So these three will be using a lot. Okay. Now, how will you put conditions in this assert true and assert false? For that, there was a topic which was left in Selenium. So let me take that up now. Yeah. So the topic is how to write effective validations in Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so let's cover this topic, and this will give you what are the different methods available which we can pass in those Boolean conditions. Okay, so the tutorial covered till now will focus mainly on how to automate different scenarios. In this tutorial, we will cover how to validate whether the results are as expected or not. Validation means checking whether the UI elements are rendered on the web page correctly or not. Okay, for example, checking whether the hidden element are actually hidden or not. Checking whether the form input fields is editable or not. Okay, so what does this means? Checking whether the hidden elements are actually hidden or not. That means I'll give you an example. Let's go to mercurytravels.co.in. Here, if you see, if I go to this flight sections, there is a section round trips. If we have selected round trip, then all the fields are visible. As soon as I select this one way, this field will go, right? So when this field goes, that means it becomes hidden. Actually, it is available in the HTML code, but here it is hidden. So uh, this is what I was saying, that I'll check whether this element which is appearing in round trip, whether it is actually hidden in one way trip or not. So this will be one test case for me, right? Similarly, other validations can be like checking whether the form input field is editable or not. Sometime what happens is there are some let's say there is an input box, text box is there, and you want to know whether that text box is actually editable or not, whether you can write something in it or not. So that is that could be one test case. So it's very important to check and validate at each point and every possible points to write good automation scripts. Okay, so if I list down what are the different UI validations, this is a long list. You can use any one of them to verify your requirement. Okay, so the first one is page title validation, which we have already seen. Getting the page title and compare it with the expected one. Page URL validation. URL validation is, let's say you have a link, and when you click on that link, a page opens up, and now you want to compare this link with the URL which was there in the HTML. So whether both of them are correct or not. So to get the URL from link, you have a method called getAttribute. Whereas to get the URL from HTML page or the browser, you have a method called getCurrentURL. So you can compare both of them. If both will be same, then your test case is pass. Otherwise, it will be fail. Clear? Any questions till now? So what does this page validation means? Page URL validation means if you want to get URL from here, the method is get current URL. Whereas if you want to get URL from this link, then we have a method called get attributes. So to use get attribute to get from here, use get current URL to get from here, compare both of them. If both are same, that means uh, it's pass. Then performing scroll down operation. So that we have already seen. Verifying hidden elements. I just give you an example. Checkbox validations. So checkbox validations can be that whether a checkbox is already checked or not. Okay, sometimes it happens is because checkbox is like when you click on it, it's like a toggle. When once you click on it, it will get checked. Next time when you click on it, it gets unchecked, right? So to check whether a checkbox is checked or not, we have a method. So I'll just give you some examples of those methods now. Similarly, we have radio button validation. So same thing can be applied to radio button as well. Now, what is the difference between checkbox and a radio button? Anyone?
In checkboxes, you can select multiple options, and radio button you can select only one.
Perfect answer. So yeah, this is the difference between these two. Multiple checkbox can be checked, whereas a radio button is only one you can select. Okay, so to verify whether a dropdown allows multiple selection or not, so for this we already saw in the select class there was a method called is multiple. So if is multiple returns true, that means it allows multiple selection, and if it returns false, then it does not allow multiple selection. Then read-only property of web elements. Read-only property means that there is sorry uh, read-only property means that uh, there is an element, there is a, let's say, a text box, and you can only read it, you cannot edit it. Okay, one of the example is if you try to edit a customer in Guru 99. Let's say you created a customer, that time all the text fields were editable. As soon as the customer this customer is created, new customer is added. If you try to edit it, you will see that its name, its date of birth, first three fields actually are non-editable. You cannot edit them, they can only be read. So that comes under read-only property. Okay, next is check if an element exists or not. This is one. Okay, so then we have text box validation. This is what I mentioned, that this read-only property. This can be extended to text box validation, whether to check whether a text box is editable or not. Disabled enabled property and page content validation. So for page content validation, we have a method known as uh, get current source. Uh, get page source, sorry. Get page source will give you the complete HTML page. Then you can verify whether expected uh, text is there or not. So three things I have not explained properly. One was checkbox validation, radio validation, and then this enable disabled, and this if check if element exists or not. Okay, so these three three or four things are actually done by three methods which we have, and those methods are: one is multiple, so not is multiple, what is it? Yeah, these are the three methods. The first one is displayed. Okay, what does is displayed says? Is displayed means whether an element is displayed on the screen or not. Okay, so this is for verifying hidden elements. Next is enabled. So again, is enabled. What does is enabled do? Is enabled verifies whether the element is enabled or not. Okay. Then next is selected. Is selected says whether an element is selected or not. So I'll give you examples of all three. For is displayed, I've already given you an example. Is displayed means whether an element is displayed on the screen or not. Okay, so an example was this. Here if you will apply that method is displayed, then it will return you false, whereas when you apply the same method on a round trip, that gives you a true. So this is difference. This is displayed method. Next is enabled. Is enabled is like, sometime what happens is there are checkbox which are not enabled at all. Enabled means you cannot check them or uncheck them. Then we will use this method called is enabled. Okay. Shraddha, you have any question?
No, sorry, Saurabh.
So you were yeah, okay. So is displayed as I hope both are clear. Is enabled as like sometimes what happens is your elements, let's say checkbox, radio button, they are not enabled at all. That means you cannot either check them or uncheck them. So that command is enabled. Then is next is selected. Is selected is it. This is used generally with checkbox and radio buttons to get the status whether a checkbox is checked or not. So for that we have a method called isSelected. So isSelected returns true if your checkbox is selected. IsSelected returns false if your checkbox is not selected. Okay, so these are the three methods available. Now all of them returns a boolean value. Okay, either true or false, and that value you can use in your assert statements. Where are the assert statements? You can use with assert true. Here you can apply is displayed, so if it will return a true, then your test case will pass, otherwise your test case will fail. So all these assertions or all these validations and verifications which I just mentioned from the next class when we'll start our frameworks will apply in each and every method. Okay, each and every method of ours will have one of the validation. Okay, so yeah, so any questions now? Okay, so moving ahead with the next method, just give me a, yeah, just give me a second. Yeah, so moving on with the next method, next topic was parameterization. So grouping we have already done. Parameterization in TestNG. Parameterization means parametering your test cases, passing your adding arguments to your test cases. Okay, so here if you see the method which I created, that is this login guru 99. This method, in this method, the user ID and password we were keeping inside the method. Let's say I'll pass these two values in the arguments. So for that, I'll just create another package, and this I'll name as again, let's say guru 99 project, or rather I'll just copy this and paste it. Okay, so here the method which we have, that is the login method, I'll parameterize it. So we'll say string user ID comma string password. Okay, and these two values will remove. Okay, so the method is login to guru 99 guru 99, and the variable is I mean the this two arguments we are passing. First one is user ID and second one is password. Okay, so uh, here this method, that is login to guru 99, this if you recall, when we were not using this TestNG, that time we were passing uh, the values of these variables in the main method. But now here we don't have any main method. This is the starting point. So from where we will pass values to these parameters. For that, in TestNG there is an option, and what option we have is we can pass that value from testng.xml file. So here I'll create one. Here I'll create one testng file. So I'll say convert to testng. Okay, and it will create where we want to create. I'll create it in uh, testng XMLs. Okay, and here I'll give it a name. Let's say parameterization dot xml. Okay, so parameterization dot xml is created. Now here, let's say the name of the suite, I change it to Guru 99 project. Test I'll change to parameterization. Okay, and classes in classes we have added that particular class. Now in this particular class you need to pass one parameter, right? So I'll say, okay, not in class, yeah, in class I'll pass this parameters and we'll give it a name. What name you want to give? Any name. Let's say I give it a name as user, and its value, let's say the value was just a second. Yeah, and the username is this. I'll copy it, paste it here. Similarly, I'll copy this, or okay. So I created this classes, and in this class is added and these two parameters are added. Okay, so the second parameter will be pass. You can give any name. Okay, this name should be mapped here in the class. Here, uh, before this add test, I'll add one more annotation and we'll name it parameter. I mean the name of the um, annotation is parameter. Okay, and the values what you'll pass in it will be, first one will be user, and second one will be pass. Uh, just give me a second. I guess this is the correct syntax. Okay, actually I've taken the wrong one, so that's the reason. Here I have to remove that. yeah, this parameter I have taken from some J commander, which is a wrong one. That's why it was giving me an error. Otherwise, I was writing correct. So here, you have to take one from org.testng.annotations, and then you can pass the variables. So first one will be user and comma. Second one will be pass. So uh, yeah, so whenever you have to pass multiple values, you will have to pass like a array, like we used to define a static array. So here you will pass the values that way only, that is in curly braces. Okay, so here whatever will be the first value from this parameterization, that is this user value, this will go in the first one, that is user ID, and the pass will go in second one. Okay, so this is how you can make your method, make your test case parameterize, and values you can pass through parameterization.xml. And how to execute it, this parameterization.xml, it will be right click, run as testng suite. Okay, it has thrown an exception, and what does that exception says? Line number 9, column number 15, the content of element type classes must match class or parameters. Okay, I guess I have passed it at wrong place. So you can see with the two values which we passed. Okay, so these parameter values has to be passed before uh, this. Either you can pass before test, or you can pass inside test but before classes. Okay, so you can pass these values here as well. In the test also you can pass, then these two parameters will be valid inside this test only, whereas if these two parameters, if you'll pass in the suite, they will be valid for the complete test, but you cannot pass within this classes. Okay, so any questions now? So this is how you can parameterize your test case. Very easy. Just use a add parameters annotation, give the value of the parameters in your XML file, and execute. Order is important. Whatever will be the first one will go in the first. Whatever will be the second one will go in the second. Okay. Yeah, Jishan.
Saurabh,
Yes, Jishan.
can we add assertion if you go back to that file, parameterization?
No, in parameterization.xml you cannot put any assertion. Assertion will be in classes here.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so that is just like a configuration file. You are just configuring things and execution will happen here. So all the assertion and everything you have to do here. Okay, so that's the end of next topic as well. And then we have is grouping is also done. Then we have is one is parameter data provider and then parallel execution. Okay, so these are two topics left. Let's have a break for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then we'll continue with these topics and these two topics, and we'll end our test engine. Okay, rest of the things we'll learn with frameworks. So see you after 7 minutes. Okay, so let's continue with next topic, and the next topic is data providers. Okay, data providers in TestNG. Okay, so this uh, this parameterization topic which we saw, that is, in this only we can pass only one value, one set of value, and that too through uh, testng.xml file. What if you want to execute this login method with multiple test data, maybe 4 pair of username and credentials, and so on? Okay, so in that case, uh, what we have is TestNG provides something known as data provider, where you can pass as many data as you want, okay, for as many number of variables as you want, and you can even extend that to read from an Excel sheet. You can even extend that code so that it can read from an Excel sheet as well. So that's what we are going to learn now. So I'll just copy this, paste it again, and I'll simply say data provider. I'll just add this so that you will get a difference between the two. And in this, the method which we have written, I'll remove this and we'll make it parameterize. Okay, but before we jump on to this, let's first understand data provider with a simple example. So data provider example I'm taking. So with a very simple example we'll take. Let's say first method I'm writing is I'm writing a test at test, and the test case is public void, let's say print test data, and here the variables are string username and string password. Okay, so these are two arguments, and let's say I'll just print them. System.out.println, uh, let's say username equal to username, and or um, password. Okay, so this is just a test case I have written. Now to supply multiple test data to it, we will create another method, and the name of the method I'll keep as uh, first of all, the return type I'll keep as string argument, string array of 2 dimensions, and name is, let's say, get data. Okay, and we will add an annotation known as add data provider. Okay, now what does this string argument, string array of 2 dimensions doing here? Okay, whenever you are using this get data, whatever return type you'll use, that will always be a 2 dimensional array. Why 2 dimensional? Because the first dimension will tell us how many uh, test data you want. Okay, and second variable tell us how many arguments are there. Okay, say for example I want 4 pairs of username and password. Then in this string the first value will be 4, that is the first index will be 4, and second index will be 2 because number of arguments are 2. Okay, why string? Because both of them are of string. Now here I'll create a string 2 dimensional array. Let's say I'll name it a data equal to new string, again a 2 dimensional, and here you need to give the dimensions. So as I said, let's say 4 pairs of 2 arguments, right? And at the end we'll simply return this data. Okay, now we need to add values to these variables. So the first variable we have is, so first we will put, first it will be data of 0 0, right? And we'll assign a value to it. Let's say the value is Saurabh. Okay, so this is first, then this will be the second. Let's say this is the password. So this will be the first username, this will be the first password. I'll copy it, paste it 4 times, I mean 3 times. Okay, this will be 1 0 1 1 2 0 2 1 3 0 3 1. Okay, so you can see what I've done is I've created a 2-dimensional string array, named it as data, and the size of this 2-dimensional string array is 4 by 2. What does this 4 means? This 4 means that you are taking 4 different test data, and 2 means number of arguments. If number of arguments will be 3, then this value will become 3. If number of arguments are 4, now this will become 4. And when this will change, when you need more data, let's say you need 10 pairs of username and password, then this value will become 10. Or you need 2 pairs of username and password, then this will become 2. Okay, let's say I'll just change the name here. Okay, so we have created this. Now how will we supply these values to this method? So for that, there is an attribute known as data provider, equal to give the name of the method. So the name of the method is getData, and that's done. This is what you need. Okay, I'll execute this code and you'll see, right click, run as TestNG test. You can see that your test case has executed 4 times with those 4 different values which we mentioned, and they are considered as a separate test case. Okay, so any questions here? No, getData is not a inbuilt method. You can give any name here. It's just that whatever name you give here, you have to mention that name here, and before this getData you need to provide this annotation known as data provider. You can provide any name, it's up to you. There can be multiple data providers as well. It's just that add data provider annotation is necessary. Okay, so there is one more question. Anshu, you have asked a question. What if data type other than string, then also? Okay, so I was about to come to this. Now, if the data type is string, like if both of them are string, then you can pass string. If both of them are integer, then you can change this argument, this 2-dimensional array to int. If it's a boolean, you can change it to boolean or anything. But the point comes when the data type are different. When the first one is a string, whereas the second one is an integer. What you'll do in that case? So I'll give you an example for that. I'll just copy it. We'll paste it. And here, let's say this first variable is string itself, but the second one is, let's say, integer. Let's say it's int, and here instead of password, let's say employee ID is there. Okay, now what you'll do in this case, so when you have different arguments, I mean different data types, then in that case here like we cannot pass anything, like we cannot uh, okay, I will ask this question to you first. What do you think, what should I do to solve this situation? So the problem is that here uh, um, data type are different. Like when both were string, I changed this data type to string. When both were integer, I changed it to integer. Both were boolean, I changed it to boolean, or anything, like if it's a byte or long or anything. But then now the question comes that what if both of them are of different type? Then what you'll do? Any guesses? Anything you can think of? What shall I do? Okay, so if you recalls one of the Java class, we discussed that there is a class known as object which can store any data type. Why? Because that is the first class of Java, and all other classes which are written in Java, they implements that. So if I change this data type from string to object, that is, if I change the return type to object, here also if I change this to object, and here as well, now in the same variable you can put any value, be it string, be it boolean, be it integer, or anything. So here you can see I'm successfully passing some integer values. Okay, so always remember, when you have different types of data, then you can use object class. What does this object class says? If I hover over it, class object is the root of the class hierarchy. Every class has object as a superclass. All objects including arrays implements the methods of this class, and it can store any data type as well. Okay, so string, integer, all these classes implements object. So they have all the methods, so they can store, this object class can store any type of data. Okay, so I just could change this two-dimensional array from string to object. Now it can store string as well as integer as well as boolean. So if you have a mix match, then instead of using a particular data type, you can simply use object. And the array will always remain a two-dimensional array, no matter whether you're creating an object or you're creating a string or you're creating an integer or you're creating a boolean. That this will always remain a two-dimensional array. So first dimension will tell you how many data are there, how many test data are there, and the second value will tell you how many arguments are there. Clear? Any questions? Any doubt here? Okay. So moving on, the last topic of TestNG which we have to study is parallel execution. Okay, so for parallel execution, I'll not I mean I'll not create any new class. Rather, I'll create a class here. Sorry, a file here. I'll just copy paste any one of the file. Maybe class execution. or let's say parameterization. Okay, I'll say parallel execution. Now, the same methods, the same test case, I'll just copy it again, paste it again, and here first I'll change as test data 1, and second I'll change it as test data 2. So what I'm going to explain here is I'm in one single suit, I'm creating two tests. They can be of same class, like here I'm using same Guru 99 project of day 16, or they can be different, or they can be not related to each other at all. Okay. Now, when you do this, both the tests, like both the test runs, will execute one by one. First this will execute, then this will execute. But if in this same one, if you pass one parameter known as parallel equal to tests, then both of these tests will execute in parallel. Okay, let's say this username is this, and so what you can do is you can change the parameters as well. Let's say here in the demo Guru 99, I got these new pairs of credentials, so I'll just copy it, paste it in the second one, and this one I'll copy and paste it in second one. So the first test runs with these pairs of username and password, and second will run with these pairs of username and password. Save the file and go to parallel execution, right click, run as TestNG suite. Okay, so you can see both of them were executed parallelly. One was both of them executed exactly parallelly, and report, if you'll see, first one is executed with these pair, and whereas second one is executed with the other one. So this will increase your this will increase your execution performance, or you can say decrease your execution time by running test cases in parallel. Okay, you can run uh, as many tests as possible. It's just that it also depends on your system, that uh, what system you're using, RAM and all, whether they'll be able to process these many numbers of parallel execution or not. Okay, otherwise you can, this is how you can do parallel testing through Selenium. Just passing one parameter in your XML file, that is parallel equal to test, which will make your all your tests as parallel. Okay, so that's it in TestNG. All the topics are done, and whatever will be left, that will take care in frameworks. So any questions now?
Is there any limitation in parallel testing?
What kind of limitation?
Like how many test cases you can run
No,
parallel?
no, there is no limitation. It's just that it depends on your system, what system you're using. So generally, I have gone till five, like five different suits I've run, or five different sets of test cases I have run in parallel. Okay. So, Anshu, you have a question. Can we provide some weight in XML file so that we can view both credentials are working? Both credentials are working. You have put assertions, right? So why you need weight? If you want weight, then run them in, instead of running them parallel, run them sequentially. These you are running parallel because you are sure that your test case is absolutely working fine and you have 100% trust on your test case, and you'll not be looking at your test cases at all. They'll be executing at the backend. That's when parallel testing is required. That's when you'll run your parallel testing. That's when you'll run your test cases in parallel when you are 100% sure about your test cases. You have full confidence on your test cases, uh, and you just want execution without you being there. If you have to see that things are working fine, then run them normally, sequentially, and see. Okay? Yeah. So that's all here. Any questions now? So please practice TestNG as much as possible. Okay. Uh, Nothing is left here. What you need for now. Now from next class, we'll be starting with the frameworks. Okay. So frameworks will take 3 weeks most probably. 1 week for Cucumber, and then 1 week for DevOps, and then interview mockup interviews which you want to give.